Good. Okay. So coming onto your mat, and our first pose is going to be reclining butterfly. So you're going to have your feet in a diamond shape, maybe support behind you. I like to practice this pose with a back bend. That's my preference. I would always put something underneath the back of my head, so a bit of the blanket in there. We practiced this one on Thursday night, and if you remember, we elevated the hips and we put something heavy on the top of the thighs. Now, if you want to go for that, you are very welcome to. But equally, if you don't have a bolster to lie on, then just lie with the knees out into a diamond shape and lie flat onto your back. You could roll up a blanket and put that underneath, going across the middle of your back, or roughly a bra strap position, just to get a little bit of release and opening for the thoracic spine. You could rest your arms up and over the top of your head, but really this is just an introductory pose. So please don't worry about finessing it too much. It is just an opportunity for you to arrive and to settle. Because it is very, very wonderful to be able to practice like this in the afternoon, in the middle of the day. And I don't know about you, but you build your day around your practice, whether it's in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening. However, when we practice in the afternoon, whilst it offers us a really nice interlude for the day, we've still got the day happening around us. We've got things to do after today's practice. We've got things that we've been doing that might still be on our mind. So when we decide to practice in the middle of the day, it has a slightly different effect on our mental state of mind, where we're at thought-wise. And because our yin practice is so based within meditation and prepping the body for meditation, prepping the mind for meditation, using breathing practices to enhance that and develop that for yourself. So it is really important that we give ourselves this little opportunity at the start of the practice to just settle and become still, and to make a personal commitment to your practice. So for the next 75 minutes, you are going to focus on your yin practice, your yin yoga. And you might like to offer this practice up, okay? Because we don't ever practice, or when you start to get involved or read the yoga scriptures, it's a very, very ancient texts that were written thousands and thousands of years ago. They talk about how as we become further, if you like, developed on our path towards yoga, one of the things that we must continually do is not only show up to our practice. Patanjali, he wrote in the Yoga Sutras that our practice should be steady, it should be continuous, and it should be over a period of time. And that's what you are experiencing. So Lucy, we were into butterfly pose. So if you're wondering, we're lying down, feet together, knees out wide. Nice. Okay. So you've showed up, you are here, you have set this time aside, and now can you offer it up to someone or something. So when we start to explore the yoga texts, and it's the same with any kind of ancient teachings or ancient understandings, we begin to learn that we are, you know, the flesh part of us, the physical presence and the thoughts within our mind, they're not really us. They're just a manifestation. That this is just the vehicle in which our spirit resides in, and our spirit or our soul or whatever you want to call that bit is continuous. It will live on forever and ever, and will take different forms once the form that we are in, this body that we are in, decides that it's had enough. And so with that in mind, we think about offering up our sort of spirit in our yoga practice in a sense of service to that higher self. So what are you doing here today that is serving your soul on a soul level? Maybe it's just that time that you're setting aside, number one, to be still. Number one, to be present. Number two, it could be just to calm the fluctuations of the mind. And Patanjali says these are the chitta vritti. And that is what yoga is. That's all yoga in this form that we are practicing together. And yoga has many forms. There are many different types of yoga aside from the physical side, but this is what we're practicing. We're practicing the physical form of yoga that is going to basically take us on a stepping stone to reach a bliss state, enlightenment, if you like, or you know, the bliss place, bliss body. But yes, Patanjali says right at the beginning of the Yoga Sutras that that yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind, and that's what we're here to do. So very lovely, just breathing in and out and being present, being where you're at and being okay with that. Okay. So we're going to take another breath or two as we are. Appreciating perhaps how the body has settled, or maybe if there are any areas within the self that you think I need to just be a little bit kind or a little bit careful or aware of over the next few poses, so that you don't overstrain or overdo. Remember, this body of yours is your precious vehicle, your most valuable commodity. So keep looking after it, keep nourishing it, even within this guise of practice, which is in its essence nourishing. Make sure that you are not doing yourself any harm whilst you practice. And that reminds us of ahimsa. We, as yogis, we try not to harm anybody else, or anything else, but we also don't want to harm ourselves. Okay, so very gently, let's start to ease the knees towards one another. And then you might like to bring the chin a little bit closer towards the chest, and roll off to the side. Just lie on your side for a moment, lie in a little curved ball as you just let your spine gently flex out. Okay. And then we are going to gently ease ourselves up. Come to sit, because you're going to need some props around you. Okay, so I have my yoga bolster going across my mat. Now, if you don't have something like this, then you are going to need maybe a thick blanket rolled up, or you could have a couple of cushions or something like that that you've got. So by now you know the score with these kind of things. We're going to use stuff like this. A rolled up towel, a thick, big rolled up towel is a really great substitute for this. Now, if you have a bolster and it's a very firm or a very thick one, mine is now, it's done its time. It's not really round anymore. It's turned into a bit of a rectangle. So with a bolster that's very high, it's kind of nice to have something. We're going to come into reclining mermaid. So those of you that are familiar with this pose can come straight into it. I like to put something else here. So it could be a book that you put here. Might not need anything at all, actually. You're going to sit sideways on, so your hip is going to come up towards your support, which is going to rest into the side of your waist. You're going to have your legs in a bit of a zigzag, okay? So I have got my top knee resting on the sole of the foot of my bottom leg, okay? And eventually you'll work to straighten this top leg away from you completely. But just start off with your both knees relaxed and fairly bent. And then you're going to come down to lie, and you're going to bring your shoulder onto the floor, and the side of your head is going to rest. Now I have got a blanket here, or it could be another towel or a cushion, not only to support my head, but to roll up. I don't know if you can see that. I've got just a bit of it rolled up, and it's just going to support the side of my neck so that I can lie in this position. Top arm, so I'm basically in a side bend, but a reclining side bend. Your top arm starts onto the side of the hip, and then it's going to take a nice big cartwheel up and over your head, and you're going to find your brick. Your fingertips are going to rest on there. If you haven't got something to rest your hand on, it's fine. You can just let your arm drape over the top of your head and use the side of your head to support your upper arm. And then this is it, this is the pose. You can then eventually, as long as this top knee feels okay, you can start to straighten the leg out. So you are now, and it's a bit like banana asana, but with a bit more work. So if you haven't got all of these props and you're familiar with banana pose, which is simply lying on your back and walking your head and shoulders and your ankles over towards one side, so you're in a curve, you're going to get very similar pose. Okay, so this is where we're at. So I'm just going to have a little check on you on the screens. So just make sure that you're getting nice and comfy, and that there aren't you don't want very many joints that are not supported here. So do feel like, you're, especially that top arm, if it gets pins and needles in your hands, then just rest it on the side of your body. Or another nice place to put it is with your hand just on your low ribs, and then you can just let the elbow roll back slightly. So you've got this really nice opening for the shoulder and the chest. And then maybe close your eyes and allow yourself to become present. And present means just thinking, for instance, about any areas in your body that you need to soften, because there will be a little bit of resistance here and there. And then it's just settling into the position, settling into the pose, accepting the pose for wherever it's at for this moment. And then we're going to use the breath I love a bit of Viloma Pranayama for this pose. Viloma means interrupted. And so we're going to interrupt the breath into 4 parts. So the 4 areas are the hip. So you're going to think about these areas in your mind. So it's the hip, the side of your waist, the armpit, and then the shoulder. Okay, so just these 4 fairly close together areas on the sideline of your body, so the top edge of your body. So as you breathe in now, I'd like you to split your inhalation into 4 quarters, 4 parts. So you take the first bit to your hip, the second bit of your breath to the waist, the third bit to the armpit, and then the 4th bit to the shoulder and the neck. Then breathe out all the way back down the top side of your body. And then again, just keep going with this, breathing in 4 stages. And feel free to split those stages or travel them up along the side of your body, however you want them to be. This is your practice after all. And then this lovely exhalation that's going to travel down. You're going to do this maybe for 8 more breaths. So that might be just a little bit longer than a minute. And then we're going to change the pose slightly. Okay. And this is a wonderful way of becoming present, because you are giving your mind something to do. And that something to do is very beneficial for the physical body as well as for the mind. Just take it easy, keep breathing. Those of you that are comfortable to do so with the interrupted inhalation, you can take short pauses between each stage of the breath. Okay. And then finish the exhalation that you are on. And you can leave your arm alongside your ear if it's there. If it's not, don't worry, just leave it on the side of your rib cage. And you're going to roll backwards slightly. So you're going to roll back. So the top hip is rolling backwards. The armpit opens up to face the ceiling. And you roll the palm to face the ceiling as well. The top of the foot can also kind of face the ceiling. So the toes lift away from the floor. If you were lying on the inside edge of your foot, then the long leg, the toes can point up. So you've got a very long stretched out. Now if your top arm is not alongside your ear, you've got it resting on the side of your rib cage. This is still really nice just to be here with the hand, and it's just encouraging the shoulder to open. And you've got this nice, still got a bit of a back bend, still got a bit of a side stretch, but it's moved a little bit more into the front of the hip perhaps, and the side of the waist. And this is going to be nice for the dragon poses that we will explore in a moment or two. So just stay here for maybe 3 or 4 breaths. And as with anything, if you come into these variations, and this will count for later as well in the dragons, if you come into these variations and you think, I've tried it, it's not for me, then you can go back to the previous variation, or feel free to adapt it any way that you might need. So just take another couple of breaths here. And it's the same. The last variation of this, some of you will love and some of you might not. So if you want to try it and you think, again, not sure about it, come back to this one. So the final variation is a bit like a reclining bow pose. So you're going to take your top arm down along by your side and then bend your top knee. And you might need to roll forwards a little bit for this, but you're going to reach back to hold on to your foot. Now you could lie here like that, but that's not very resting. So what you're going to try to do is roll back and put the top of your foot onto the floor so that the knee points back. Now you should have a really nice quadricep stretch here. You can let go of the foot, you can take the arm back up and over, but now you're lying in a bit of a back bend with the top of the foot within the top knee bend. Doesn't matter where the leg is in space. You can try this. If you want to put something underneath it, you can do. Different days of the week will result in different positions for this top leg. Just depends how the rest of your body feels. But just stay here and again breathe into it, because this is a bit more intense, a bit more of a deeper stretch. If you think, not sure, I want to go back to the previous one, then go for it. But do have a go and see if you can use your breath. Maybe go back to counting the breaths in for 4 and out for that lovely slow single breath. But interrupt the Viloma Pranayama on the way in and just see if that helps you to stay very, very present. We use these challenges on the body because that's what we're doing. We're putting the body under stress, and we mean stress in a very, very good way, a positive way, because when we put stresses through the body, it wakes the body up, it makes the body produce either more fluid around the joints, or if we're putting stresses through the bony structures, it encourages the bone density to stay strong. If we're putting stresses through joints, then it also helps to thicken up the supportive structures as well. So this is particularly important as we age. We have to keep doing this for our bodies, keep our bodies healthy. As we don't want our bones or our joints to get weaker because we're not using them or putting enough forces through them. Okay, so we're going to stay here for another couple of breaths. And then when we're ready to come out, we're going to come out the same way that we came in. So we will just gently release the top foot if it's still tucked under and straighten out the leg. You can then bring the arm up alongside the ear again. Roll back forwards, bend the top knee to bring it in, then you can just float the arm back in front of you. And it might just be nice to lie here in a bit more of a curled up position for a moment as you feel your spine releasing somewhat. Take a nice big breath in and out. Good job. And then let's use the arm to support us as we lift ourselves up. And then all we're going to do is simply roll ourselves over so that we can do exactly the same pose, but the other way round. Okay? So just turning, resting the top knee if you can on the instep of the back foot, both legs bent, lying yourself down. The whole of the arm, all the way up to the shoulder, is on the ground. The neck is supported with blankets. The top arm cartwheels up and over if you can. If you've got something to rest the hand onto, do so. But if not, just let it rest alongside the ear. And if it's too strong, just bring the palm down to rest on the side ribs and let the elbow fall out behind you. Top leg can eventually straighten, and you want this sensation of length to be occurring all all the way down the side of the body. So make sure that wherever you're at, you feel this line of connective tissue or tissues being slowly lengthened on this opposite side. Okay, so just take your time. Support that if you find that your top leg has straightened and it means that your knee feels vulnerable because you've got nothing supporting the joints, and often in the yin, the style of yin that I teach, we use the props to support the joints of the body quite often. And there is a style of yin, you can go to some yin classes where there is no props used at all, and you're just in different poses, putting stresses, stretching tissues, staying for a long time with no props. And then there's another type of yin yoga, which is restorative yoga, which is the poses that we do when we take the legs up in the air. So legs up the wall pose, Shavasana is a restorative pose, anything where you're just chilling out, and the shapes that you make on the body are very mild. And the reason that we do that is because it is very balancing. When we feel overwhelmed and we've had quite a lot being thrown at us, then a more restorative style of yin yoga can be very supportive for our bodies. Now we're in more of the yin style of things, which is the kind of stretching of connective tissue of the fascia of the body. And that's what I want you to zone in on this side. So that's why we're using the breath here. So we're going to go back to your 4 parts inhalation, 1 steady exhalation. Think about breathing into your hip, and as you breathe in there, expand the space with your breath. Breathe into the side of the waist, do the same. Breathe underneath the arm, side rib cage, and then breathe into the shoulder. Hold the breath for a second, and then breathe out steadily all the way down the side of your body. And keep going with that, breathing in and breathing out, but make it your own. So if you've got an area of your body that feels more tight, more restricted, whether it's your hip or maybe it's your shoulder, just take some more time, be kinder, or give your body what it's asking for. So keep breathing. 4 parts in, 1 lovely slow part out. And the connective tissues, the fascia of the body, interestingly enough, as I said to everybody as we were getting logged in, I've just been making slime with the girls in the garden, and we made it with corn flour and conditioner. So for those of you interested in doing this, it's 2 parts corn flour to 1 part conditioner. Simple. And corn flour, for those of you that know, is a substance that we like to use as a way of describing the fascia of the body. So if you make up a corn flour solution, and you know what corn flour, we use corn flour in our cooking often to thicken things up, don't we? Because it's a starchy thing, isn't it? But anyway, corn flour most closely resembles connective tissue. So if you make a corn flour solution up and then leave it, it will go hard. And if you leave a spoon in it, for instance, it will bind around the spoon and it will hold it really, really tight. And this is exactly what happens with your connective tissue. If it's left on its own, it stiffens up and it holds tightly to the joints, the joint structures or the bones, whatever it is, it holds it. Now, exactly the same as with corn flour. If you were to grab that spoon in the bowl of corn flour solution that has gone thick, and you were to start to tease it, to start to wiggle it around, eventually the corn flour gives in. The corn flour, its resistance starts to dissolve, and the solution might not come as runny maybe as it was at the very start, but it will relax and it will give, and that takes time. So that stirring or the jiggling around of the spoon, it doesn't happen straight away, but with a little bit of patience, it will give in and it will start to soften. And that is exactly what happens with your connective tissues. And it takes about 3 minutes for that to happen. So they've seen, they can, so any time we're in these yin poses, if you're thinking, why am I here so long? That is the reason, okay? Because we want to put stresses through very quite dense connective tissue in places and help it to just ease and release knots of tension, release, if you like, tightnesses or blockages, because this connective tissue is woven around every cell of your body. It's through every muscle, it's around every joint. It's not like a sack. We used to think that all of our bones and muscles were in these bags of connective tissues, but now they realize it's actually woven like a big beautiful spider's web all of the way through. And yeah, and it really is what holds us in the form of our bodies. We used to think, you know, you think, oh, well, what is my form, what is my structure? Oh, it's my skeleton. But your skeleton is even so bound up with the connective tissue that runs through the bones of the body as well. So without the connective tissue, we would be formless. We wouldn't have the structure or the integrity that we have as a whole. Okay, so let's roll backwards then. So when you're ready, start to release yourself. Let's turn the armpit up to the ceiling, the palm up to the ceiling, the top of the foot up to the ceiling. And you're just looking for a little bit of a back bend now. So you've got a side bend and a back bend. This is an unusual kind of position for the spine to be in. We don't normally side bend and back bend at the same time, but one nonetheless that the spine actually really enjoys. So when it's done like this, when it's slow, when it's in a supportive manner, then it's very, very safe. So please don't fear these shapes that we are encouraging for our spines. Again, use your breath to work out any areas that are tight, that feel a little bit tense. Enjoy breathing here. Lovely. So if you want to take it to the third stage, then remember you kind of roll forwards back to your start position, your side bend, and then you reach for the foot, the top of the foot, and you are trying to bring the heel up towards your bottom as you would if you were giving your quads a stretch, and you are aiming to place the top of the foot onto the floor. and having the toes pointing towards your shoulder. So you've got your toes pointing along the mat. So if you're not sure, just have a look this way. I know that lots of you have done this before with me. Don't worry if the knee lifts off of the floor or you can't get it down onto the ground. And if you want to take your arm up and over your head again, you can go for it, or you can rest it onto the sides of the ribs. And just be here. So you've got your side bend, back bend, quad stretch, maybe a bit of a hip sensation. And just think about all this lovely space and release that you are giving your body. So maybe just observe that whether over time the body's resistance starts to ebb away. When we meet these poses initially, there is always resistance. This is usual. It's our body's way of protecting us because it doesn't want to experience pain. But once we've come into the pose and we're in a safe, supported place, then the body then starts to go, okay, I'm happy here. And whether it's the release work that you're doing with your breath, or how you're carrying the energy around your body with the power of your mind, all of these things combined are giving your body a sense that it can release. It can be soft. It can let go. And that's what we're here to discover. We're here to see whether in the process of letting go, can we release those long-held, stagnant areas within the body? Can we allow energy to flow through areas of tightness or restriction? And the wonderful thing is that as we explore this, it starts to open up the emotional body, the area we start to feel more compassionate about things. We start to kind of care a little bit more. All right, so we're going to take a couple more breaths here. And then we're going to think about coming out of the poses in the same way that we came in. So gently unravel, unwind yourself back to your start position. And then with the arm forwards, just curl yourself round, maybe come off of your bolster, maybe lie on your side. Okay, so then coming up to sit. So we've done a tiny little bit of back bending, quite a lot of side bending. We've worked really well into the sides of the body. But in particular now, we're going to reside our focus mainly around the hips, hip flexors, the hip, the ball and socket joint of the hip, all of this area, which, as if you were with us on Thursday night and I said to you this was kind of, Thursday was part one, this is the part two from Thursday's session. So the dragons are all based on lunges. And this could be practiced with no props at all. And you could have 1 foot forwards, 1 leg back. I'm hoping you can see that. It's quite dark, isn't it? And this is basically one of the dragon poses. So a pose that we're in really quite often in our normal yoga practice. However, to stay here, we were going to be in each one of these dragons for 1 minute. So not as long as you have been in for the other ones. But even to be here with this back knee like this for a minute is too long for me. So there are ways around this, loads of ways around this. Number one is to take your blanket and to fold it so you've got quite a straight, thick edge. And you're going to put that in the position of where your back knee was. Now, if you think about, so we're going to step our right foot forward so that we're all doing the same. So this blanket is going to support my left knee. And you want to find in the middle of your knee joint, there's a sort of softer area in between where the patella is and the other bones of the lower leg. And you want to let the edge of the blanket rest in that support. You could do the same thing with one of these yoga blocks. You could have that there instead. So you want so when we lean forwards, that edge is in the soft bit of your knee joint. So that's kind of point number one. So with your right foot forwards, you're going to have a little bit of a lunge going on. Can you see the angle of my left thigh? To support that, if you had it available to you, you could put a bolster here like this and just have it so that it catches the front of your left thigh. It's not essential and you can practice this quite sufficiently without it. Most important area for me really is the back knee. There are other options, as there always is, which is that you could lean so far forwards, which we will do in one of our variations. You could pick up the back foot. For some of you that will be okay, for others it won't be. You could put a cushion underneath the lifted back foot if you found that eases your knee. You could just have your toes tucked under and have your knee off of the floor. It makes it a more strong pose, but it is one way of protecting your knee. But I quite like this folded up variation. You'll notice too that I've got bricks to support my hands, so a couple of books or something that's higher up. It's not essential. You could just have your fingertips on the floor, or you could come up onto your thigh. Okay, so come into something that looks a little bit like this, making sure that you have an angle to the left thigh and you can feel a stretch or a stress through the front of the left hip. And this is a baby dragon. Okay, so this is, and also the other thing to remember here is if you get any pinching or any discomfort into this right hip or the front leg, then one way around it is to turn the knee and the toes out or to take them wider, because it might be that your pelvis and hip ball and socket joint, the configuration, the angle of it just means that you need a bit of extra width. And you might find that you can really successfully, because remember the stress here is in the left hip, not so worried about what's going on in the right, to be honest. So where the right leg is in space doesn't have to be so important. So find yourself into something that looks a little bit like this. And we're going to stay here for about another 45 seconds. I've left my timer over there. I'm just going to grab it because all of a sudden the timer becomes important. Okay, so we're going to come in about a few seconds time. So you've got to really stay with this, stay with the breath. But because we're going to be moving fairly frequently, it does become a little bit easier. Just a few more seconds. Okay, so we're going to change from being in our baby dragon to a dragon flying low, or some people call it fire breathing dragon. Now for this, I like to take my foot out wide because of the way my hips are. Sorry. When I do a squat, I have to have my feet wide, my toes turned out wide, and it tells me that that's what my hips prefer. So I'm going to take my foot, my right foot, out to the long edge of my mat, even off of the mat is fine. And I've got my bricks here, and I might just use them to you're trying to lean or lower your upper body a bit closer towards the floor. And it might be that you can bring your one forearm, preferably your left one first, and maybe your right, either down onto the bricks, or you could bring it down onto the floor. So again, it doesn't matter how low you get. You could just be still with your hands on your floor, on your bricks, and just lowering down a little bit, okay? And it's just going to change the sensation within the hips. Now, for those of you that are looking to maybe deepen your splits practice, then these dragons are the way to go, because the connective tissues all around the hips so dense, so much of it, that it can be really beneficial to work the connective tissue in a little bit of a deeper way. Okay, good job, you're doing brilliantly, everybody. So keep breathing. Okay. All right. So just coming up a little bit, and if you need to come out of the pose or to stretch your right leg back, go for it. At any stage, you can come into downward dog, you could come into cat-cow, you could come into child's pose. Do what you need to do if that's necessary. And then whenever you're ready, you can come and rejoin us in this same lunge position. Now I've still got my foot fairly wide. I'm hoping you can see that it's off of the edge of my mat, because we're going to come into a twisted dragon. So the left hand is going to stay on the floor. I'm going to put my right hand onto the inside of the knee and just use it to maybe press slightly into the knee. You can roll onto the side of your foot if you like, so that the knee really rolls open. And you can turn to look over your shoulder out behind you. So this goes really nicely with all the twisty stuff that we've been doing this week. Some of you who are perhaps familiar with this can perhaps, let's do this, can maybe bend your left knee, so just check where it is and how it feels, and you can reach back to hold on to your left foot. Keep opening the right knee out to the side, keep pulling the left heel in towards the body and turning the body round. So you've got a really nice quad stretch going on here, as well as work into the right hip. You're going to stay here for another 30 seconds. So just hang it out if you can. Keep rolling the top shoulder back slightly, opening the chest. Good. Okay. and then gently releasing and coming back to face forwards. Okay, so you might find that you just need to straighten out the right leg and lift the right toes off of the floor and give the back of the leg maybe just squaring off the hips, maybe bending the left knee a little bit. Okay, so we're then going to come back forwards. We've got just a couple more of these dragons in these shapes to do. And so this is overstepping dragon. So what I want you to do now is, I'll get these blocks out of the way, is you're going to walk your heel closer. So before we had it right far forwards like this, I want you to bring it back. So now you're going to really bend the knee forwards. Now I always tell you not to do this. Don't ever do this in class, because you're not weight bearing on the right leg. It's okay, and I want you to feel as though you're just about able to keep your right heel on the floor. So if you're thinking that's a bit too easy, just bring your right heel a little bit further back still, and then really overstep and see if you can. It feels like the right heel is lifting off the floor, but you're doing your best to keep it down, and you want to feel quite an intense stretch, maybe into your Achilles and maybe up through the calf muscle region. Okay, so you could stay upright if that helps. So you could have your hands on your supports. Maybe a chair in front of you is quite a nice option, because you could rest your forearms onto the chair and still be leaning forwards. You could be quite far down onto the ground as well. And so yes, this is another way to make it more intense, is to bring the left knee a little bit closer. So yeah, this might not be your most favourite thing. You might be feeling quite a lot of intense sensation in and around the calf, the heel. We did a little bit of work where we rested the back of the legs on a chair. Do you remember that one? And we rested the calf muscles. So this is another bit of us giving them a little bit of intensity. Okay, so we're just going to stay here for about 15 more seconds. You've so got this. Good job. And then you are going to gently release. And you might find that you just need to come upright for a minute and just maybe give the leg a little bit of a shake out, a little bit of a wobble. Some circles is always good. Okay, so I'm just circling the knee. All right, so dragon splits is coming up next. So you could just have a brick underneath you, a bit like this. Still support your back knee as always. Some of you might find that having a bolster or a load of cushions underneath you, cushions and bricks, it's up to you. And my trick with the splits is to always circle the knee as you come into this. So you're just literally going to be walking the front foot further and further away from you. And eventually the toes, the right toes, are going to lift away from the floor. And the back leg gets longer. Try to keep the hips fairly level. And if you can, you're going to put something underneath. Some of you might get down into the splits. And you can go for it if you want, but maybe just put something underneath the front leg. Don't force yourself to come stupidly low into it. Stay propped up, so use your bricks to lift you up. You don't have to fold forwards. You can stay really upright and just be here. You've got about 45 more seconds to go. You've got this. Keep inching the front heel further and further away. And if you've got something underneath the hips and you can rest the leg onto it, go for it. So you've probably got quite an intense stretch going along the back thigh, maybe the inner thigh, maybe the back leg, back knee. You're doing brilliantly, well done. Okay, so when you're ready, gently start to take the front heel back closer. Go slowly to drag it back, and then you can bring the knee and the foot back behind. Maybe do some circles and go the other way. And then drop your bottom down towards your heels. Maybe put something underneath your forehead or stack your fists and just be soft in child's pose, any variation that you prefer. And let your body find some stillness again. They're quite active poses, these dragons. Hence the name. You're not going to have, dragon and yin are probably not two words that you would associate with each other particularly. But what they do is they build a lot of heat in the body, and heat is tapas. And when we have a build up, if you like, or of heat, sometimes that's coming from resistance. And in the hips and the thigh muscles, we have a lot of resistance, a lot of tightness there that we have to kind of work quite hard to sort of let go of and to release. Tapas is also discipline. And discipline is that same thing that Patanjali says, that I mentioned before, that our practice should be steady, should be continuous, and over a period of time. It means that we have to show up. There's no point in saying, oh yeah, I'll just go to yoga, once a week or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with the once a week practice. But if we want to use this as a lifestyle choice, we have to show up regularly. If not every day, but as often as possible. And that's what you've been doing. You've done this now for the last month. We've done this together. My job is probably been to make it as enjoyable as possible, because it's hard to practice on our own and to show up, to have that discipline. And we explore the discipline within the dragon cycle because they're challenging, they're different, they're harder, they create heat in the body. They're not those lovely reclining mermaids or butterflies that we started off the practice. So it's a little bit more intense. And sometimes life is a bit like that, isn't it? Especially when it throws us curved balls in the shape that we've had most recently. It's how we've dealt with that. That tapas, resolving to the situation and not giving in. Okay, so let's do the other side. And the other side is you're going to be ready for this. Your body is so going to be asking for this, because it's so nice to, when we've done one side of the body, the other side's like, what about me? When am I going to get a turn? So it's baby dragon first of all, whether that's with your hands on bricks or up onto your thigh. Remember, your most important thing is to support that little soft squidgy bit in the center of the knee joint, and to have the left foot far enough forwards. I don't mind what sort of right angle or what sort of angle there is to the front knee, because you're not weight bearing. But if you do lift yourself up onto that thigh, then do encourage the knee to be above the ankle joint, okay? However, you want to be feeling this now in the front of the right hip, okay? So we're just working our way, if you like, around the hip joints, both sides of the body benefiting here. And you're going to stay here And breathe. This is nice and familiar. So just bring you make sure there's an angle to your right thigh. So if your right thigh is sort of up here and is very vertical, then do sort of bring it a bit further forwards. Have a look. That's it. Obviously work within your own measure, within your own practice. Support the front of the thigh if you need to with your bolster or your rolled up towel, because that's what that's there for too. So another couple of breaths. Good. And then we're going to transition down. So we're coming towards fire breathing dragon. Fire breathing dragon is the arms, the forearms right down on the floor. But dragon flying low is just you crouching down, hands on the ground, lowering down. Remember, take your left foot out wider to the side or spin your toes so they point out at your knee and your toes point out at an angle. If you want to come down lower, you could use your bolster or your bricks to put your forearms down to. It's easier to get your right forearm down and have maybe your left palm on the floor if you need a little bit of an easier variation. Bring both elbows down when you're ready. Bring them all the way down to the floor if you want. But do make sure that there is no kind of pinching or unwanted sensation in the front hip and the left hip. Okay. Just think about how this is just opening up into the hip region, and it's going to be using these big thigh muscles, so stretching around the connective tissues that bind these muscle groups together. And maybe your breath has got shorter, maybe it's harder to control or to smooth out the breath, but can you go back, maybe think about the 4-part breath that was so lovingly cultivated just a few moments ago. Well done. Okay, so now we're going to come into twisted dragon. So your right hand stays down on the ground or onto a brick, your choice. The left knee rolls out to the side, so you're rolling maybe onto the outside edge of your left foot a little bit, but it doesn't have to happen. You could keep the foot flat. Left hand on the inner left knee, and just gently using your arm to press the knee out wide. And it could be that you just stay here in this shape, maybe taking your left shoulder back slightly, turning the head, looking over towards the end of the mat. So you get a really nice sensation in the right hip here, as well as this external rotation in the left hip. Those that want the quad stretch, and it is completely optional, but you could pick up your right foot and bring the heel into the bottom, but maybe just explore left hand position so that you can still get that rolling back and then looking out behind you. So you might need to take your hand over the top of your foot and sort of round to the outside edge. And again, you're going to stay here for about another 30 seconds. See if you can keep lunging the right hip down a little bit for more intense sensation. Good job. And then gently release. So lean forwards if you're holding your foot. Lean forwards when you release the leg back down. Make sure that the knee crease is supported again. And you may then want to just lean back or ease back a little bit, straighten out the left leg, give it a little bit of a shake. Okay, so we're going to do the overstepping dragon next. So that means that you bring your left foot closer, you look like drag it back down the mat, so that then you can lean forwards over. So you've got this kind of big deep angle going on for the front leg, and you want to feel as though the left heel is sort of lifting off of the floor, but you're really trying hard to press it down. And you've got a sense of big stretch down in the Achilles and the calf muscle. You can stay up high for this if you like. You could have your blocks here resting your hands onto so that you're a little bit supported, but don't let your upper body do all the work here. Try to keep as much weight moving down into the left heel as possible. Yes, you've got this big lunge going on with the right hip, but if necessary, bring the right knee a bit closer in so that you do keep it about the left back of the left leg. Okay, you've got about 30 seconds to go. Keep breathing. Find something lovely to gaze at in the room around you, perhaps. Find your breath. See if you can keep it nice and smooth and steady. All right. And then we're gently going to lift back out. So maybe just ease the legs back, maybe come into a bit of a hamstring stretch this way now. That might just ease the calf out a little bit. Okay. So always move in a way that makes you feel good. So we're going to come into the dragon splits next. So I like to circle the knee. So bring the hands down to the floor, maybe do some circles with the knee joint and start to ease the leg forwards. Okay, so just go eventually so that the left toes start to pick up off of the floor and the back leg stretches back. Support the leg, support it with a brick or a bolster underneath you. Use another kind of support to keep you lifted. See if you can stay in that nice big high place with the upper body. Just do what you feel comfortable with. Keep inching the left heel further and further away. Otherwise, all you're doing is you're still in one of the previous poses. So see if you can get the foot just a little bit further. Keep breathing. You're almost done. About halfway there. Doing brilliantly. Well done, everybody. Okay, let's take one more breath. Good job. And then when you're ready, start to inch the heel back. Ease yourself out. It's okay to make some noise as you come out of these, okay? So if there's a few groans going on, you could pretend that you're omming slightly, omming quietly to yourself, little chants of oh as the heels ease, as the knees come back. And then come on to all fours and do some circles. So yeah, this is a little bit more of a different yin, isn't it? When you do these big poses, less about props, less about relaxing onto them, but a bit more about kind of stretching. Take your time, go the other way with these circles. And then it's quite nice to do a little bit of downward facing dog because this is quite squaring for the pelvis. So if you've got a bulk blanket, just shove it out of the way. Tuck your toes under, lift the knees, Let the heels move back in space behind you. Let the sit bones lift. Let the head hang. Press towards the top of the palms. Bring the chin towards the chest. And if you want to pedal the heels, bending the opposite knee, go for it. But just see whether you can get a nice big lengthened sense for your spine. Just feel maybe whether your hips feel different in this downward dog than perhaps they ordinarily do. Good, then bring your knees down onto the ground. Untuck your toes and rest down in child's pose. And just take a few breaths, any variation that works well for you. Okay. So with calm, with ease, just ease yourself up. And you're simply going to come to lay down, please. So you could have a support for your head, but no bolster under the knees, no blanket under the knees. Just come to lie down, please. And lying on your back, make sure that your body feels nice and long and fairly symmetrical, and that you've got you've got everything where it needs to be for you to be comfortable. So we're going to come straight into Shavasana. So what I want you to do is I'd like you to bring your hands down by your sides with your palms touching your thighs. And I'd like you to bring your ankles together, please, and the inner thighs together. Have the heels away and the toes up, and the arms long and straight down by your sides. A bit like you're standing, a bit like a toy soldier. I want you to squeeze the inner thighs together, super strong. I want you to squeeze your buttocks. I want you to squeeze the quadriceps, the back of the thighs, the outer thighs, the calves, the shins, the knees, the ankles. Squeeze even the toes, maybe scrunch them up or stretch them out. Squeeze the chest muscles, the back, the shoulders, the arms, the upper arms, the elbows, the wrists, the fingers. Scrunch up your face. Make your eyes as small as possible. Maybe just scrunch up your cheeks, your mouth. Make everything super tight. Hold it there. Hold it, hold it, hold it. Squeeze, hold the breath now. Take another moment. And then exhale and release completely. Let the toes roll out to the sides. Let the palms turn up slightly towards the ceiling. And then just lie in this position that your body has come into. Appreciate the beating of your heart. And how if you take a few smooth and steady breaths, your heartbeat begins to settle. And you stay present and aware of the breath. With each exhalation that you take, the body becomes a little bit softer and a little bit more closely connected to the earth beneath you. in order to move forwards with our life, it is the slow burning desire or fiery resolve that directs our energy into what is essential. Change often involves creating friction as we rub against the grain of our habits, our wants, and our desires. This heat causes shake-ups in our complacency and builds resolve to stand vigil to our healing. With the act of tapas, we learn to say no to temporary fixes we employ in our life, and yes to a longer term goal. Instead of avoiding our life or placing a plaster over the things that are no longer working, we tap into the flame of our desire and practice to raise our vibration. Tapas helps us to set boundaries around the actions, thoughts, and behaviours that are obstacles to our personal development. Once the fire is lit, it burns bright. All right, so I'd like you to, as you become aware of your body, maybe wiggle fingers and toes and turn your head from side to side gently. Take a stretch out any way that is good. And when you feel ready, you can roll yourself over to one side and come round and up to sit. And as you come up to sit, and maybe you're automatically sitting into your normal seated position, maybe it's a cross-legged one, just settle into it, close your eyes, encourage your body weight to be evenly distributed and the sit bones to earth you, the rest of the spine to feel its natural curves and a sense of lift away from the earth. And then I want you to notice how your hips are feeling. And it might well be that they feel just a little bit more spacious or a little softer. And that's what we're looking for. It's just these tiny changes, tiny subtle differences that as we practice continually, we keep showing up, we start to notice them build and build. Okay, so let's take your fingertips down by your sides. Breathe in and sweep the arms up above your head. And as you breathe out, bring the hands down to rest in front of your heart. Close your eyes, soften your shoulders, release your jaw. And think about whoever or whatever you dedicated your practice to at the beginning. Put all of the wonderful energy that you have enjoyed from your practice out into the universe so that they can share in it too. Take another breath in, open your eyes. Well done. Namaste. Lovely stuff. So just take it easy for the rest of the day. See how you go with the hips. If you've got any questions, just send me an email, get in touch with me if you need to. And I will look forward to seeing you on Tuesday evening or later on in the week if you're coming along to practice then. And maybe just have a little home practice tomorrow. Maybe that's your homework for the week. So yeah, see if you can roll out your yoga mat and just practice some of the things that we've been experimenting with and set that tapa, well, that discipline of showing up and seeing what happens, even if it's just for 15 minutes. See what happens when you practice on your own. And good luck. Let me know how it goes. I'll be really interested. So yeah, have a lovely rest of the day. Enjoy this beautiful weather, and I will see you very soon.